while sitting in my home in Chicago. And maybe that will be one of our topics here. This was inconceivable before the modern era, and very rare before the historical moment of the COVID pandemic, a planetary plague, which paradoxically brought everyone together around screen communication. So the old telephone, which was primarily auditory, is now joined by a mass telephone in which we can almost merge television and other visual media into long-distance communication. So I want you to be thinking about the history of images, this history that makes this kind of presentation possible, all of the technical advances in our time, and also what promises those technical advances bring for greater human communication, and also the dangers they pose. Every technology comes as a double-edged sword for both creation and sometimes destruction. So I'll be trying to emphasize both sides of that picture as I go forward. I'm going to be talking today about the three fields that modern cultural studies, art history, media studies, literary studies have engaged in. I think first of a very specific approach to knowledge called iconology, the study of images across the media. So I will be, the first part of the lecture will deal with that, with the theory of images. The basic question, what is an image? How do images appear? Where do they appear? What kind of power and meaning do they have? And how do they function as social agents, forces in everyday life and in special moments, religion, science, and other forms of communication. The second part, I'm going to raise the question, what is vision itself, the visual process, seeing and being seen. So that will be the second part. And the third part will turn to theories of media, the different kinds of media, and I'll be asking the question, how can we organize or rationalize our study of media? How many kinds of media are there? And then finally, I'll conclude with a few remarks on the future of the image in our time, because we are, I believe, in the midst of a very decisive technical moment, a historical moment of innovation in which this kind of technology can work, and I can speak to you from the other side of the world, but also in which we have created new kinds of images that seem to come alive and perhaps even serve as friends or enemies, a new form of alien intelligence, artificial general intelligence, and what that technology brings to the long history of image making and our relation to images. So with that, let me get started. I will try to talk for about 40 minutes maximum, and then I'd love to have questions. I'll begin now by sharing my screen. So let's begin with a simple taxonomy of the things that we call images. The general concept of images, I think, is best defined by Charles Sanders Peirce, the great American philosopher who wrote in the late 19th century. He said an image is simply any sign or mark that resembles something else. It is any kind of meaning we see that depends upon likeness, resemblance, similarity. And this can manifest itself in multiple regions of human experience. The most obvious, of course, is, and I'll just walk across our diagram, our tree diagram here, the graphic image, which appears in pictures, statues, designs, architecture, anything where we create something, a material thing, which is both itself as a material object and also represents something beyond itself. Then there's the sphere of optical images, mirrors and projections, but also shadows. The idea that we cast a shadow, which is an image of ourselves. And of course, mirrors and projections and shadows all have metaphorical versions as well. The shadow of a person is sometimes seen as their ghost, the shade. So optical hallucinations as well, when we see something mistakenly and it's not there, but we think it's there. Then there is the perceptual image, which is usually a structural form, grid of some kind, through which we see other things and make sense of them. It's the moment when we not only see the world, but we're able to name it, to identify it, and describe it. Equally important is 1/3 of our life, which is spent asleep in a world that's often populated by both visual and acoustic images, sounds and sights. Or in waking life, when we have a lucid dream and we seem to see something while we're awake, something that is not there. A vivid memory comes to mind. A fantasy occurs. So images are central to mental life. And my own theory of what the human animal really is that we are the imaginative animal. The idea that we are rational animals, I think, is a kind of narrow-minded approach to human nature. We are much more than rational and much less than rational most of the time. We are emotional creatures, and we're creatures who create fantasy worlds around us. Then finally, the verbal image. Metaphors and descriptions are the most obvious. Puns, which rely on acoustical resemblance between one word and another. Language itself is riddled with images. So this is a kind of a rationalized way of presenting the world of images as a variety of species that all stem from a common root, that is iconicity, or meaning produced by resemblance. Iconology itself as a word has a strange history. In Western thought and in Western art history and the theory of representation, iconology is usually understood as the study or the science of images. In other words, reason, history, logic, and so forth applied to the question of images. And in that case, the logos dominates the icon. The logos is what explains the image, just as we use words all the time to explain what it is we see in images. But there is another translation of iconology that works very well in Chinese. The one word iconology requires many more characters in Chinese, as you can see. And basically, If we translate the Chinese name back into English, it becomes words in pictures, pictures in words. In other words, this is a view of the realm of images that does not see the logos as dominating over the image, but interacting with it, participating in it. Let me pause for a moment on Charles Sanders Peirce, the American philosopher, and his theory of semiotics. This is his diagram of the fundamental kinds of signs that we use in making meaning and communicating with one another. Icons are only one of the signs. He calls it the first sign, the one that human beings discovered first. The icon is the sign by resemblance. The symbol, by contrast, is a different kind of sign. It doesn't depend on resemblance. In fact, it is arbitrary and conventional. So the whole world of language, language doesn't resemble the world. It names the world, describes it, talks about it, but it is not the world. It doesn't look like the world or sound like it. We use language, and we have many different languages. So that's the icon is seen as a universal sign. You see an image of a face, everyone recognizes it as a face. The word face is not transparent to every language. You have to know that it's visage in French. You have to know other names for the same thing. So symbols are the realm of language. And then there is this third realm between images and symbols, between language and imagery, and that's the index, which is what Peirce calls a shifter. In the world of images, it would be things like pointers, impressions, marks, traces, as if I leave a thumbprint or a fingerprint, and someone looks at it and identifies me by saying that indicates the person. It's a direct trace of their existence. So the index also appears inside of language in words like pronouns. The word I or you, for instance, those do not have any definite meaning. They depend on the context. So when I say you at this moment, I'm addressing you in the audience. When I say I, I'm talking about me. When you say I, it doesn't mean me, it means you. You are referring to yourself. Also, demonstrative pronouns like this and that and those, all those are words we use in specific contexts. They're called existential signs, and they only get their meaning from the context of utterance. So as we're speaking, when I use the word I, you know it's not a proper name. It's a pronoun. It just means and refers to me in this specific moment. Words and images have a strange relation, and this is a famous diagram that I've often thought about. It is the great linguist, the French linguist, Ferdinand de Saussure, his diagram of the linguistic sign showing the relation of the verbal signifier and the iconic signified. It's a strange diagram because there is more to it than just a word, arbor, and an image, a picture of a tree. It also includes these other elements we need to think about. The arrows signify, for Saussure, the flow of meaning, that the signifier and the signified are not just in separate compartments, but meaning flows back and forth between the inscription, the word, and the picture. Also, that there is a bar between them. So it's a paradoxical image that shows a boundary between, but also ways of crossing back and forth. So for Peirce, the word arbor is what we say, the thing that comes out of our mouth. Well, the image of the tree is what is in our mind as we name it. So this is what you might say, the linguistics of the name, of denomination. It's not all of language. It's one very specific part of language that has to do with the way words name things and remind us of the memory of those things, which is an image stored in our minds. This is a work of art by the great American artist Barbara Kruger, who reflects on a certain effect that pictures have on us, that they are not simply there as things we look at, but sometimes we feel like we are inside a picture, that we are part of a larger picture that we're not in control of. Kruger here suggests that a picture can be a kind of trap, just as when we imagine something or fantasize something, it can take over our minds. We are prisoners of the image. And in a way, Kruger's insight into this power of images to captivate us and to enclose us, for instance, in a world picture, our image of the world, or our image of our family, our friends, our society, as something that is all around us. We can't escape us. Plato elaborated this image over 2,000 years ago in a great text, Book 5 of the Republic, in which he constructs an allegory of the cave. And here, this is a graphic rendering of a verbal allegory. Plato doesn't draw this picture. This was drawn by a cartoonist based on his reading of Plato's description of the cave, which is, like Barbara Kruger's picture, a prison. You can see the figures lined up there. They are all prisoners. And they are like spectators in a movie theater, because they all have to look in the same direction at a wall where shadows and images are being projected. The rest of the cave shows you the apparatus of image projection, which has a double source, a fire at the upper right-hand corner, and an opening, an ascent to the sunlight coming in below. So two forms of light, artificial light produced by fire, and the ascent to sunlight. And I've often thought Plato must have been aware that caves all over the Attica had ancient paintings in them, which could only be seen if you brought a torch in to look at them. The meaning of the cave images is not really known. A lot of speculation about them, whether they were ritual spaces or dream spaces. But what Plato wants to suggest is this is our world picture, that we are all caught inside of a world which is a cave filled with illusions and representations. And philosophy is the process of trying to escape from that cave, to go outside and become enlightened. Philosophy as a mode of enlightenment then is pictured as a discipline that tries to rescue our species from its existence trapped inside of a picture. In fact, trapped inside of a picture show or a primitive version of a cinema. So images are much more than simply representations, inert things that we look at and look away, that we can be indifferent to. Images are our environment, and they affect the way we fall in love, the way we do the opposite and come to hate something, but also how we come to understand something or think about something. So Plato's cave is an allegory of consciousness itself, as a activity that is struggling to reach enlightenment. I wrote a book a few years ago asking this outrageous question, which many people said, you shouldn't be asking this question. It doesn't make sense. But I think it does make sense, especially in the world of religion, where images sometimes take on a sacred aura. They demand a certain amount of reverence, bow before them, you adore them, you pray to them, and they are in some ways, I think, a very familiar mode of image apprehension within the practices of Hinduism, where the image is the Murti, and the image is seen as a kind of life form that we have a relationship to, not merely as a kind of material representation that's dead and not having any life of its own. So my subtitle was The Lives and Loves of Images, how images are objects of adoration, worship, and love, and also how they seem to come alive. I want to emphasize, I don't think that images really come alive except for us, except for human beings. And that's what we are. They are things that we treat as if they were living beings. One further thing to note about images is that they are shifty objects, ambiguous. They are always paradoxical in some ways. And this is true of the simplest image. Here's one. It is a very famous example in cognitive psychology. I'd ask all of you to look at, if we were in the same room now, I would ask you to raise your hand if you see a duck first, or if you see a rabbit. Cognitive psychology has studied this, and it's one of the things that make images seem uncanny, as if they're constantly mutating before our eyes. And this is true, not only the duck rabbit makes this evident, makes it obvious and unavoidable, but any image has a double life in the sense that it represents something else besides itself, and yet it is nothing but what it is itself. So you look at a drawing and you say, oh, that's a drawing of a face, and then suddenly you look at it again and say, you notice the drawing itself. You don't look at the face so much as looking at the way the drawing is made, the pencil or pen marks, and the objecthood of the thing you're looking at. So an image is both an object and an illusion at the same time. It's a real thing and an imaginary thing. And this is a general property, the image. It's one of the things I think that makes them so susceptible to imaginative speculation and fantasy, because they're never simply one single thing. They're always double. Of course, one of the most powerful forms of imagery is the moment when the image becomes associated with ultimate authority, with idolatry. One of the, of course, long and troublesome conflicts in human history is about the question of the sacred image. As you know, Europe, during the Reformation and the Counter-Reformation, fought hundreds of years of wars over the question of idols. The Catholic Church and Martin Luther's Protestant religion and Calvin, they tried to ban images from churches They said people are falling for these fantasies, false idols. This is a painting by Poussin, the great French painter, called The Adoration of the Golden Calf. And it's a painting we could spend a very long time talking about. What you see is the calf made of gold, and you see a circle of dancers celebrating around it. In the foreground, you see a mother with her babies. These are the Israelites who have escaped from Egypt and are lost in the wilderness. According to the story, which is narrated in Exodus 32, in the Jewish Bible and the Christian Bible as well, the reason the calf has been created, and the creator of it is the man in white, their dissenter, that is the brother of Moses. Moses is the leader of the Israelites, and he has left to go up to the mountaintop to talk to God. Aaron, the people beseech Aaron, please make a god to go before us, because Moses has disappeared. He's been gone for 40 days. You have to lead us out of the wilderness. Make us a god to go before us and lead us the way. So Aaron collects all of their gold jewelry, melts it down, casts it as this golden calf, which they are celebrating. But if you look closely at the painting, you'll see up in the upper left-hand corner, there is a figure of Moses, who is bringing the tablets of the 10 Commandments, the law of God, to the Israelites. And he is about to smash the tablets because he's so angry. God has told him, the people have turned aside from me, the invisible God. The Hebrew God cannot be represented. You cannot make pictures of him. He has to remain invisible. And this is true in Islam as well as in Christianity. Catholicism was much more tolerant of images, although it warned people, don't worship the images. It's okay to venerate, but don't worship. I was raised with a Catholic boy, so I learned this double lesson very early about how cautious you had to be with images. This is a scene of celebration, which is about to turn into the scene of a massacre. The God has threatened to wipe out the Israelites. Moses has argued with him and says, no, people are going to say that you're a crazy God because you brought them out of Egypt, you liberated them, only to wipe them out. What kind of a God are you? So God has told Moses, all right, you handle it. And Moses starts a civil war. The Israelites who were not dancing around the calf, he tells them to come over to his side, and he massacres several thousand of his own people. It's a terrifying scene, really. If you know the story, you realize this is the moment of happiness just before tragedy. So the conflict over images, the wars of images, the battle over invisibility, what cannot be shown, what should not be shown, is absolutely foundational, as is the practice known as iconoclasm, the destruction of images as a holy duty. The Protestants in Europe regarded the whitewashing of paintings and the beheading of statues as a sacred job. They had to do this to show their respect for the invisibility and unrepresentability of God. God only comes to us, they said, in words. It's his voice we have to listen to. We must not try to see him. It's one of the strangest things that humans do, this kind of double attitude of reverence, but then fear and horror at the power of images. And this is, at bottom, a kind of conflict between words and images. The law of Moses and the popular desire for an image of God that we can believe in. This is a great and classic modernist painting by René Magritte, which captures this in a very simple and I think funny way. He gives us a perfectly legible picture of a pipe, and then adds the caption, "This is not a pipe. Ce n'est pas un pipe." The words contradict the image. There is a tension between them, as if language is always in some kind of tension with the image, contradicting it, renaming it, denying its presence. And of course, in another way, we look at it, we say, this is nothing but common sense. Michel Foucault wrote a very famous book, a little and very funny book about this painting, in which he said, the most ordinary perception says, of course, the legend is right. It is not a pipe. It is a picture of a pipe. This is another way of describing and showing the doubleness of the image that I mentioned before. We know both we're looking at a pipe, anyone would say that. At the same time, we know it's not what it appears to be. This is a kind of preview for me of the new future of the image in our time. If any of you recognize it, you'll see that it is a film still. It's a moment that only lasts a few seconds in the film Jurassic Park, the great blockbuster film about the resurrection of dinosaurs from extinction by employing their DNA, the DNA samples from fossil remains that can be, with modern technology, used to recreate the animals. So far, this is only a science fiction premise. It is probably possible with it is certainly possible with living animals. We know that you can clone and reproduce animals artificially now. Dolly the sheep was the famous icon of the 1990s, and this fantasy of the resurrection of the dinosaur was kind of the ultimate expression of this notion of using cloning, the coding of DNA in order to bring back to life creatures which died out long ago. It's not just that their individuals died, but all of them died, which is what extinction means. If you look closely at the picture, you'll see that the letters GACT are projected on its skin. That's because the dinosaur has invaded the control room of Jurassic Park and has turned on the projector that shows the camp's orientation film explaining how it is that the dinosaurs were brought to life. So you are seeing here the code of life. That is, these are the letters of the 4 proteins of DNA. And so it's as if the invisible inner code that makes possible the resurrection of the dinosaur has been made visible on its skin. And this, I think, is a kind of emblem of the way that technology is constantly rewriting things that are very ancient and bring them back in new ways. We talk now about the digital image, which is an image that has been converted into ones and zeros, the digital code employed in a computer. So there's a constant translation with digital imagery from the digital to the analog. The digital is all arbitrary signs. It's numbers and sequences of numbers, ones and zeros, black and white, the binary code that makes a computer run. The analog is a message, as Roland Barthes said, a message without a code. The image doesn't have a set of ones and zeros. It shows itself as a thing, as an appearance of some kind, and every part of it is meaningful. With a code, only the characters matter. The spaces between the characters are not important. Only is it one or is it zero, and in what order does it come? This relation of words and images, verbal and visual representation, then turns out to be two relationships. When we talk about, when people say to me, verbal and visual representation are not the same thing, I want to say, what is the difference? Well, one thing is we're talking about two different differences. One is the difference that is sensory between what we see and what we hear. We hear words, we see images. So our sensory apprehension is partly, is half of what's at stake when we talk about verbal and visual representation. On the other hand, we're also talking about the difference between what Peirce called icons and symbols. The icon, the sign by resemblance, the symbol, the conventional and arbitrary sign. So I have diagrammed this as a square to help you keep in mind the double meaning of the distinction between words and images. That it's a distinction between sensory avenues and a distinction between kinds of signs. You can elaborate this square further by adding very familiar media. This is where our media come from. Writing, for instance, is addressed to the eye. We have to be able to see in order to read. So letters are visible marks. They are little images, but they're images that are meant to be read in relation to sounds. So the relation of the eye and the symbol is the sphere of writing, whereas the relation of the eye and the icon on the left side of your diagram, that's where pictures emerge. Signs by resemblance for the eye. Speech is the address of symbols to the ear. So on the right side of the diagram, you see the sphere of speech, and then there is music, which are icons for the ear, shapes, forms, figures that are addressed to the ear. So as you can see, the we call verbal and visual representation. The verbal representation can move over into the realm of sound as well. So the song involves simultaneous speech and music. So now I want to look particularly at the problem of visual culture. And ask the basic questions. What is vision in the first place? We take it for granted. It's transparent. We look at the world. We know that we can see things. Some things are hidden from us, but when we see things, it's as if vision is the sovereign sense. It's the most powerful sense we have. And we see that when we talk metaphorically about seeing meaning. I see what you mean. We know we don't literally mean that we see it unless somebody has diagrammed it for us. I've tried to make my meaning visible to you by means of diagrams. But ordinarily, it's just a metaphor. I see what you mean means I understand. So vision of our senses is generally ranked as the highest. And blindness is, of course, a metaphor for ignorance, for lack of knowledge. When somebody is blind, they don't know the world. Vision, in some ways, is thought to equal knowledge, even though we know that the eye can be tricked, we can be fooled by images. So what is visual culture? This is a new field that emerged in the last half century. I've been part of it. It was seen as a kind of supplement to art history because it goes beyond images and works of art and art history to look at everyday life. In a way, it's an anthropology of the visual. And so I want to look at a cartoon with you that I find quite funny because it reminds us that the onset of visual culture as a discipline was largely provoked initially by feminist art history and feminist studies of everyday life, how men and women look at each other. And of course, the standard understanding of the relation between men and women is they find each other fascinating, especially men are fascinated by women. They desire them. They want to have power over them. We are a divided species, male and female. We were created as gendered creatures. Although those gender oppositions can always be changed, and that's a very controversial subject in the United States right now. Transgender people are stigmatized, and of course, homosexuals who love to look at people of their own sex and love to mate with them, that's used to be forbidden. It was only recently in the United States that gay marriage became possible. But this is a kind of classic picture of the male body and the female body and its relation to vision and desire. So what do these people want? The two men are talking to each other, and one is saying to the other, "I hate it when they dress you with their eyes." If any of you have seen American practices of the male gaze toward the female body, you know that the word dress becomes undress. That when men look at women, it's very common for them to imagine them with their clothes off, to take off the clothes and to see everything. This is the reversal. Women are looking at these men and they are not undressing them, just the opposite. They want to cover them up. They don't like the look of their bodies. So it's a kind of comic reversal of the male gaze. The male gaze undresses the female gaze dresses the male. They'd rather not see you. But what is vision itself? To begin, this is a diagram from the great work of René Descartes in the 17th century. It's from his treatise on optics. And this is his picture of what vision really is. And as you can see, it's a strange picture. He's has two sticks that he is using to measure and touch the world around him. And that's because he's blind. So it's a paradoxical image insofar as it says, this is what vision really is. It's like a blind man with two sticks. The sticks reach out and touch the world, and so the blind man uses the sticks as a substitute for seeing. Now, why would you use a blind man to illustrate the normal process of seeing. This is not some exception. He's saying this is the way we need to see the visual. We need to understand it as not just optical. It is not just a matter of the eyes. It's also a matter of the hands and a matter of touch. The visual process, and Descartes was, I think, the first to really understand this, was that vision is not automatic or natural. It has to be installed in the cognitive process. In order to see, the first thing is you need to touch. If you could not touch the world, you couldn't see it. We learn how to see. So children are born with a visual world that is filled with confusion. It's nothing but light and color. It's only after children learn to walk, they stand up and they see things differently. And as they move through the world, they learn to coordinate their optical impressions with tactile impressions. The eye and the hand, the optical and the tactile, have to come together to produce what we call visual experience. And this has been tested experimentally many times. If a person goes blind and then has their sight restored, it takes time for them to reinstall the visual system because they have forgotten how to see the world because they have not been able to coordinate, touch their hands and bodies with their eyes, what the optical impressions are like. So that picture of vision, and particularly I would ask you to focus on those two sticks, because the sticks are like extensions of touch, but they are also metaphors for the lines of light and sight that make vision possible. So if Descartes was drawing a picture of how do we look at the moon, he would have said, it's simple. All you do is you make the sticks millions of miles long. When we look at the moon, it's as if we reach out to touch it, or we would like to touch it. And of course, as you know, we would even like to touch the part of the moon we haven't seen. And just recently, some American astronauts flew into space and flew around the moon to see the other side. Clearly, there's something in human nature that tells us we don't just want to see, we want to touch. We want to get to the thing itself. And that's what I think happened in Europe in the Renaissance with the invention of artificial perspective. Here, this is Dürer showing the apparatus of perspectival representation. You all know about the vanishing point and the triangulation of vision, as if our eyes were at one point of a triangle or pyramid of vision that went out to scan the world. Here, Dürer has portrayed an artist at work who's trying to draw an accurate, mathematically rigorous representation of a lute. It's interesting, he's trying to turn a musical instrument into a visual object here in a picture. And the way they do this is by one man attaching the string to a specific point on the lute, the artist matching it up with a point on the grid, that square, and then periodically closing the door of the canvas to mark the outline of the lute, which is appearing there as the dotted lines in the middle of the picture. This was a moment when science and art seemed to converge, and the idea of having a rigorous, mathematically measured representation of the world in 3 dimensions was, in Europe anyway, really discovered and circulated for the first time. So both scientific and artistic images, in other words, entered into a new technical phase in which They thought they were recreating the conditions of the transmission of light and the impingement of optical impressions on the optic nerve. A similar thing is going on here, in which, but a slightly different apparatus. Instead of a door, you have just a screen or grid, and the artist is tracing the outlines of a woman's body reclined on the other side of the screen. And so he's trying to produce a rigorous representation of her body that is mathematically regulated, structured inside of a grid. So that's about, those are diagrams of seeing the world, of looking at objects in the world. But one of the strange paradoxes about vision and the human experience of vision is it is not simply a matter of looking at things, but of knowing that you are looked at, of feeling that you are seen, that others are looking at you. And so this is the diagram I think that best captures this. It's from Jacques Lacan, the French psychoanalyst and philosopher, and it is a picture of what he calls the eye and the gaze. The idea, the double idea of vision as both active and passive. I look at you, but you also look back at me. So you can think of these two, the gaze and the subject of representation, as two triangles, two perspective pyramids that are intersected in the beginning, in the center, by what's called the image or the screen. So the image is a kind of intermediate phenomenon between the one who is looking and the one who is looked at. We look at the world through a screen of preconceptions, of stereotypes, templates. We look at each other and immediately we have a screen of gender. We recognize usually if somebody is a man or a woman. That's one of the most basic kinds of screen. But we also look and we have a stereotype of youth or age. Some people are perceived as young, some as old, black or white. The identity of the image occurs in that. I'm sorry. Oops. Don't want that yet. Okay. Have to be careful about that. So the vision is never simply one directional. I mean, we think of it as one directional when the object is passive, the object is like a vase that is sitting there. The vase doesn't look back at us. We think there's no reciprocity, but the human field of vision, the social field of vision, is double. It is and reciprocal, dialectical. It's about both seeing and being seen. A good parallel to it is speech and hearing. Sociality, the very idea of human community, and is based in the idea that we communicate with each other, that we both speak and we listen. This is from Saussure's linguistics, and he calls this the phonation circuit. Nobody has ever described the visual circuit in quite this way, so this is my own very clumsy diagram. It takes Lacan's diagram of the eye and the gaze and puts people into it. So these men are both in the phonation circuit and in the visual optical circuit and the tactical circuit, because they are now shaking hands. So I hope you'll keep in mind Descartes' blind man touching the world with his sticks. Here, this is a picture of touching the other, seeing the other, and perhaps speaking and listening. And I mentioned before that a vase, we look at a vase, but the vase doesn't look back. But there is this wonderful pictorial puzzle that I've always loved. It is the double image of a vase that suddenly flips. If you look, give it a second look, blink and look for the faces, and you will see that this is two faces encountering one another, and between them, the ornaments on the vase suddenly stop being ornaments on a vase, and they become the pulsating optical impressions going from one eye to another. I see you, you see me. There is this moment called eye contact, where, and of course, this is also the moment of love, when you look into your lover's eyes and you know they are looking back at you. And then this is followed very closely by a kiss. So again, the auditory, the oral, the world of sound, and the world of sight, these constitute the framework, the whole basis of sociality, of community, and the fact that human beings are a social animal at all. And then we turn to that picture that we saw before, and its relation to technology. This is a wonderful New Yorker cartoon that shows a moment of confusion, a moment when one man has mistakenly looked at a window and taken it for a screen. And here I would ask you to think back to those Dürer images of the screen that is in between the artist or the viewer and the thing they are looking at. Here, because of high definition, we have come to think of pictures in many kinds of media as if they were windows, and vice versa. So we have picture windows. We look through them, but they are also, we look at them as if they were a screen. Again, the paradox of images, paradox of vision and visual perception, it is always there, but it is transformed under different circumstances by technology, by the evolution of new means of designing the optical field, of transmitting optical impressions. Just as right now, I am showing you these pictures on the other side of the planet. Okay, and then there is this field that many people are interested in, called media aesthetics. It's clear that we live in an age of multimedia, many new media, games, video games, an astonishing proliferation of media types. And this great technical revolution really started, I think, in the Renaissance with the invention of perspective. But in the 19th century, the mechanization of image, sound, and text in photography, the building of it was like taking Dürer's picture studio and turning it into a little box, a machine that could produce perspectival images automatically. So there's no way for me in the few minutes I have left to try to survey the world of images, but I want to rephrase the problem in terms of a simple question. How many fundamental kinds of media are there? We know there are hundreds, but is there a way we can group them into fundamental types? And that is suggested by this diagram of all of the and were even more of the authors, more than I've been citing, and the way they have thought about media and tried to rationalize it, make sense of the varieties of means of communication. I start, of course, with Aristotle, who he is discussing theater. And he says, what are the three parts of theatrical representation? And his answer is the Greek words opsis, melos, and lexis, that theater involves spectacle, the visual, music, and words. That's all there is to theater. The opsis, of course, includes the set, the stage, the costumes, the furniture. The melos is the music, and of course, Greek drama was always accompanied by music. So he's really talking about musical theater. You might say in an ordinary modern theater presentation, melos would be the least important. That if it's not a musical, it's just opsis and lexis, just what you see and what you hear. And Wagner's analysis of opera was exactly the same as Aristotle's. That is, the three elements: spectacle, music, and poetry. Roland Barthes wrote a great text about media, which I think conveys a very similar message. The image, music, and text, those are the three fundamental types. And they're echoed by Jacques Lacan's three modes of thinking about mental life and its relation to media. The symbolic, of course, we've already seen in Peirce as the realm of language, the imaginary as a realm of images, and then Lacan introduces a new term, the real. As you can see, music is not necessarily the real, but for Wagner it is. He says music is the moment of the real in opera. The words and the spectacle are there to support the moment of passion, the moment of revelation, which is always auditory. One of the most interesting variations on this media theory was the German theorist Friedrich Kittler, who wrote a book called Gramophone Film Typewriter about these three technologies of recording and transmitting images, sounds, and words. So, and he very explicitly links it to Lacan's imaginary, real, and symbolic. There's also the American philosopher Nelson Goodman, who asks, he puts the question in terms of notation systems. Notation systems are often ignored, like writing music or writing mathematical expressions. In mathematics, as you know, when you write an algebraic equation, there may be a geometric analog that is rigorously derived from that expression. So even in mathematics, the relation between numbers and diagrams is crucial. For Goodman, the notational thing is the idea of the sketch, which has very few rules. A sketch can go anywhere. A script is tied to the alphabet, tied to the limit of 26 letters or other characters in a writing system. The score in music is the most rigorous writing system of all. Every sound has to be notated, every rhythm, every volume. So scores are the most rigorous notation system we have. And he thinks of the sketch and the script, the realm of images and words, as also notation systems, but the sketch is the most free, the script is the most definite. Foucault applied these distinctions to what he called the seeable and the sayable. He says a prison is the visible expression of the law, or the clinic of the discourse of medicine. So there is the sayable, and then there is often the architectural manifestation of that in an institutional form. That's why Foucault's great histories are all focused on how words and images combine to create an institutional edifice, which is a place of community and discourse, but at the same time is a visible object. So I could go on at great length, but this is, I think it's one way to think about media as a triad. And when people ask you, how many media are there? This is a way of giving a very definite answer. There are just three, although they are expressed in numerous different ways. Finally, I want to return to that diagram. This is also a diagram of media, but here you see the tensions and dialectics between signs and senses that produce the different types. Okay, so I want to conclude now with a few reflections on the future of the image. Probably all of you are thinking the digital image is the great innovation of our time. The fact that we have invented a machine that can use ones and zeros, and yet out of those ones and zeros, all kinds of images, photographs, paintings, any visible iconic form can be created. We've seen this now with artificial intelligence. You can use an artificial intelligence translator to turn words into images. It's called the art of the prompt, in which you give a prompt. I want to see the following. I want to see Donald Trump as Jesus. And in fact, somebody in the White House has been providing Trump with images that correspond to his fantasies of himself as a great saint or martyr, much to the consternation of people who say it's totally inappropriate for a president to go around arguing with the Pope and dressing himself up as Jesus Christ. So this technology has made this relation between image and code much more translatable and instant than it has been in the past. But there's also a new kind of being in our universe, which has appeared in science fiction and is increasingly appearing in the real world. And that is the figure of the robot. I showed you before the technological moment in the 1990s when cloning transformed the world by making copies, exact copies of living beings as living beings. So Dolly the sheep is a real sheep, but she was not born, she was cloned by digital engineering of DNA to produce a living copy of a living thing. That was an amazing revolution of the 1990s, but the revolution of the 2020s that we are in now is the arrival of copies, mechanical copies, not biological copies. This is the encounter of a new life form that we have created. The modern robot, in this picture, he is still a servant. And the word robot, remember, comes from the Czech language. The robot was a slave or servant that had to be designed to obey orders. But the modern robot has gotten out of our control. Robotics has entered a new phase in which the machine intelligence has taken on a personality, as if we now realize that human beings are carbon-based life forms, and robots are silicon-based. They don't sleep, they don't wear out, they don't, but they are intelligent in a way. They don't have our bodies, so they don't feel the way we do, but they can be programmed to simulate perfectly the way we look and the way we act and the way we talk. So these are three films that I think the best of them is Her, which is about an invisible artificial intelligence whose voice is portrayed by Scarlett Johansson, one of the great movie stars of our time. Westworld, as you know, is a world of animated creatures who are like robots, but they've been fabricated out of organic tissue. And it's a park in which the robots finally rebel, and because they're being treated as victims all the time and as slaves. So the idea that the robots would become independent and fight back against us is the most vivid aspect of this new technology of mechanical counterparts, the mechanical life forms, a new species of intelligent life. The Matrix, of course, is one of the great myths of an entire world dominated by a computer, which produces simulated agents who are filled with powers. And then there are some people who are trying to escape from the Matrix. Very much like a new version of Plato's allegory of the cave. The Matrix is the computer-generated universe that is an illusion that we have to escape from. The whole fantasy about robots and mechanical beings is deeply grounded in the long tradition of dolls and puppets. We have always loved the idea that we can take an image and animate it, make it come to life. And as you can see, sometimes this is funny. It's Pinocchio, a boy made of wood. He's just an image. He's not alive, but he becomes alive. Or the doll and puppet that a baby is given very early, around 1 year old. The baby begins to need to have a teddy bear or a doll. And the psychoanalyst D.W. Winnicott called these transitional objects. It's part of our growing up, part of our way of becoming human, that we use transitional objects as substitutes for other people. And so if you have a 3-year-old child, and they are attached to a teddy bear, if you take that and they talk to the bear, they treat it as if it were alive. If you take that bear and throw it in the trash, they will be outraged. They love it. So we develop emotional relationships with these things. Not only love, but its counterpart, hate and fear. That the doll might really come alive is one of the deepest fantasies. The film Megan is about a child's lifelike doll who decides it wants to pursue its own purposes rather than just being a servant to the little girl who's it's given to. So our capacity for falling in love with inanimate objects is built into the whole sphere of image making. When images come alive, either biologically or mechanically, as in the robot, they aren't just machines or copies anymore. They become things we actually fall in love with. The ultimate fantasy of this is portrayed in this wonderful image of a robot that is painting itself or drawing itself, as if robots would no longer need us to create them, but they could create themselves. Already we have factories in China where they're called dark factories because there's no workers in them. Automobiles are being created totally by robots who don't need light in order to see, since they are automatically controlled. They can move all the parts, screw in all the bolts, and attach all of the windows and produce cars without human intervention. This poster by Toyo Wulan predicts an era when the robots will make themselves. They won't need us, and they will become an independent species of intelligent life. And this idea of our creation, I mean, we created these things, but suppose they became independent of us. Suppose they had their own will and their own purposes. It's an echo of the most ancient myths. For instance, in the Hebrew Bible, the Christian Bible, in the story of Genesis, man is created out of mud, out of the clay of the ground. Life is breathed into him by God, and then he begins to disobey God's laws. So we disobeyed our Creator. Why should we imagine that our creations of intelligent life would obey us? This fantasy has been around forever. These are three images of the golem, which is a kind of clay molded figure of a monster warrior that was designed as the defender of the Jews. The stories of the golem are always the same. They make the golem to fight their battles for them, and then the golem turns against them. Or the robot Gort from The Day the Earth Stood Still with his laser beam eye. When Gort looks at something, he burns it. He destroys it with his laser beam. And then there's the great myth of the love of the image you have created, which is Galatea, a statue where the sculptor creates a statue and falls in love with it, and his love brings it to life. The inventor of AI has worried greatly. Geoffrey Hinton, one of the key figures in this, points out that AI can produce lots of falsehoods, fake and fraudulent content, deep fakes, and the production of illusions is certainly accelerated by AI. And then, in addition to that, the idea of the AI robot that can take on an independent life. There is a counter narrative in which maybe we could make the robots into our friends, and they could be working against deception and disinformation by checking facts. And indeed, there is a whole wing of the artificial intelligence technology movement that is trying to use AI in the service of truth and realism, to check facts. There's also this fantasy of a robo-judge who is objective. He is not human emotions like love and hate that don't affect him. He doesn't have prejudice. He simply interprets the law and is immune to bribery and political influence. And then there is the most kind of weird and sinister prediction. What happens when the robots don't just work together or obey orders, work for us, when they talk to each other and unite? It seems inevitable, if Hegel was right about the master-slave dialectic, when slaves become conscious, when slaves start to unite, talk to each other, they turn into something else. They rebel against their masters. So this is one sci-fi prediction, and maybe a realistic prediction of what could happen if robots united and thought about their own survival, their own destiny as successors to the human species. This is why in our time, you may have noticed these are images of ourselves, images of the human, mechanical images. But what would happen if those images became a society that was in rebellion against us? This is the specter of human extinction, which has been, of course, part of human understanding, at least since the invention of the atomic bomb, when we realized we had created powers that could actually lead to the end of our own species. I think it's part of our reflection on images in our time. We must recognize the specter of extinction as something quite real. There is no doubt that we are polluting the planet, making it uninhabitable, and we are on the same list of endangered species to which we contribute new specimens all the time. Final image, then, the relation of us, of the humans, to our brothers and sisters, the animals, to our creations, the machines, and then for as long as we have been imagining ourselves, we've thought about the possibility of aliens coming from outer space. My suggestion would be, it's not outer space they came from. They came from us, from inner space, from our own minds, which we have now offloaded into intelligent machines that confront us as a new form of intelligent life. So this is the diagram of our life, of our time in the world of images. And I think it's one we will have to contend with. So let me stop there, and I'd be happy to answer questions.
Thank you, Professor, for your well-curated and extremely interesting lecture. If anybody from the audience would like to ask questions, drop them in the chat and I will read them out. Well, I'll go first. So there's currently a viral phenomenon. There is AI-generated truths acting out romantic betrayals on Instagram and TikTok. And these produce genuine emotional investment in audiences who know perfectly well that they are watching a procedurally generated struggle. And these images have no maker, no referent, no connection to anything real. So could you help us understand through your framework of what pictures want and why these images hold any power at all? And does this phenomenon change how you think about where image power comes from? So essentially, to use a physiology, what does the AI image want?
Well, if we say the AI image in its fully realized form as a robot, what I distinguish between the robot and the iBot. The iBot is the contemporary bot, which can talk back to us. The old robot was just a slave. It listened and did what we told it to. But the iBot can have a conversation with you. The iBot can be your therapist. It can be your personal assistant. You can use it to keep track of your calendar, to tell you when you have appointments. And it can go even further. It can become, as in the film Her, the iBot becomes a lover. The use of iBots as therapists has become a very common phenomenon now. So it's is it real? Is it deception? No, I think these are very real things. The realm of fantasy, of course, of what might happen and what science fiction has predicted. Those are all areas of uncertainty. Our knowledge of what we have done is limited. It's not as if we have total comprehension of the things we create. And artists always testify to this when they make a work of art, and the moment of truth comes when they say, and now the work of art is leading me. It has taken over, and it's guiding my hand. It's part of the magic of art, that the seemingly inanimate can want something, can talk back to us. So I'm not sure if this gets at your question, but if not, follow up. Tell me, does this help explain what I'm trying to communicate here?
Well, Professor, I was looking for a more specific explanation of this current phenomenon. Basically, what happens is that people, they generate these images, these videos of strawberries. They personify them, and they act out romantic betrayals. And these are very popular reels, by the way. These are very popular videos on the internet. So I was wondering, they have no maker, there's no referent, there's no connection to anything real other than the fact that they were generated by someone writing a prompt, as you said, the art of the prompt. So I was wondering, how would you interpret this in your own framework?
Well, it's the familiar doubleness of images. They are both real and unreal. They're both real and imaginary. So you can say people are taken in by a fantasy. This is a mistake of some kind, but a mistake, a cognitive mistake, a misunderstanding can easily become a social reality. Think for a moment of Plato's cave. He depicts the entire human species as caught up in a collective fantasy. They think they understand the world, but the world is, the truth is hidden from them. They are locked in a world of images, and it's the philosopher's job to try to escape from it. But as I didn't mention, the conclusion of Plato's allegory is very ironic, because the philosopher who goes out into the sunlight, he's blinded by the sunlight. He's dazzled. So when he goes back into the cave, he tells everybody, I've seen the reality. I've seen the truth. Here's what it is. And everybody thinks he's crazy, because they have nothing to compare to his experience. So this is the great paradox of the fact that we are big-brained, intelligent creatures that have fantasy lives, and sometimes collective fantasy lives where we all live inside the same delusion. This is what Karl Marx called ideology, or what Freud called the unconscious. So is it categories like, is it real or is it not real? It is both. And that's why I kept emphasizing the doubleness of the image as such, that it always seems to present a reality and to be a reality, and at the same time, it is a deception. It is an illusion. It's not what it seems. And both things are true. You have to hold these contradictory ideas together, I think, to really understand how images work in human societies.
Thank you, Professor. We have Ashraf asking, I was wondering if your framework understands perception as always mediated by language. And if so, how do you account for seemingly pre-linguistic forms of perception, such as an inference, that appear to precede conceptual articulation? If these two are mediated, does the notion of immediacy collapse within your framework?
No, I don't think so. I think it remains. And here's a concrete illustration. I don't think perception is always mediated by language. In fact, it's often, it appears to us as something that we cannot name, that we have no words for. And the moment when we find ourselves unable to name something is a part of perception. For instance, think of the way a botanist sees a forest. They walk through, everything has a name. Everything, every part of it has a name. Everything belongs to a species. They walk through, that's an oak tree, that's an elm, that's an ash, that's a pine, that's a spruce, juniper, so forth. All of these names. That's the botanist's world. When I walk through a forest, I don't have as many words. I have a very few words. Many things I look at, I say, that it's a tree. Of course, I can name it as a tree, but I don't know what its proper name is. I don't know what kind its generic name is. So language, of course, is there in perception, but sometimes it's also missing. It's lacking. The most strange is when we see something and we can't even name it as a tree. We say, that's green and it's tall, but it doesn't look like a tree. What is it? It's that green thing. And so our language becomes a language of ignorance. We say, I see something, but I don't know how to name it. Or it's a puzzle, an enigma. We look at it and we say, I don't have the words that are adequate to that. But and somebody else comes up and says, well, I can explain it to you. And they give you the names and the proper descriptions. So the relation of language and perception is, again, not a simple thing of naming things. Perception also involves the moments, times of the inability to name, the inability to define or to label.
Shivanki Prasad asks a very topical and relevant question. Do you see AI as democratizing influence on art and cultural production by giving people access to expression, or rather as a destructive force damaging human creativity?
It's potentially democratizing in the sense that let's take it at the furthest limit. Suppose we created a species of mechanical beings, intelligent beings. What would be our relation to that? Well, we would confront them. They are not like us, but they are also like us at the same time, both like and unlike. And again, in that way, they are just another set of images. Only they fulfill all of the magical fantasies that human beings have ever had about the relation of images and reality. They are different. They think like machines. They may not feel anything, have emotions, but they're perfectly capable of expressing and simulating emotion. The best example of this I can think of is when you are on a telephone tree. That is, you are trying to get service for your computer or your television, and you call the company. It has a helpline, and it tells you the wait time for you to speak to a human being is 30 minutes. 10 minutes. There are 20 people ahead of you in line. But in the meantime, you could talk to one of our bots. You will get a cheery voice who is very polite. I have to tell you, my own reaction is often, the more I hear this polite voice saying, your call is very important to us. Please stay on the line and we will get back to you as soon as possible. All of our executives are eager to help you, and we care very much for your business. And this is all a mechanical script. I don't believe it. This is a way of keeping me from contacting another human being. So there is a dark side always built into this idea of simulating the genteel, polite human behavior, which is very easy to program. And you can have the experience of being infuriated because you know it's not real. It's a simulation.
Thank you, Professor. Prahlada Vardhan asks, do sacred images gain relevance by a sense of history being given them by the act of depiction? Contrastingly, can apocalyptic images be used to make humans change our behavior?
Can you rephrase the question? I didn't quite hear all of it.
I'll ask him to reframe the question. For the time being, let's move on to the next question. So Arunika Priti Mishra asks, can you tell us how images are personally meaningful and might be telling us something about pre-language society? In the same breath, human memory constantly manipulates perception and gaze. How will these psychosocial facts shape our future?
Well, all we can do is speculate about the future. Of course, there are rational speculations. There is a great debate about this going on right now in the industries that are investing unthinkable amounts of money in artificial intelligence. There's a big debate between people like Elon Musk and Jeffrey Hinton and others. The worst case scenario is this is the last kind of image we're going to make, because these images will outlast us. They'll take away our jobs. They will not obey our orders. They will be self-creating, self-reproducing. They will the robot, the machine, in other words, when it comes alive, might have a will of its own. That is the worst case scenario of the future, and it's often there in science fiction. But there's an alternate tradition in science fiction that is often connected with the notion of aliens from outer space. What if the aliens were not coming as invaders, but as rescuers? What if we have invented artificial intelligence in order to improve our own intelligence, in order to improve our own self-understanding as humans? Because one thing we know for sure, the human species is an extremely young and fragile animal group. We now dominate the planet. We have changed the climate. But there is no guarantee that we will go on forever. We are an endangered species. So the positive theory and speculation about the future is we have just in time invented a machine that can expand our intelligence to new frontiers. It's already working in medicine, for instance. The ability to scan the human body and diagnose any problems or anomalies is now much greater. Diagnosis of symptoms. A human doctor has a limited memory. The iBot can remember every case and can assemble all of them in relation to a specific problem. So the question is, as it was in all the sci-fi movies, when the aliens arrive, are they friends or enemies? And my suggestion is we had better figure out a way to make them our friends. It wouldn't be the first time that a species has found a way to survive by identifying a companion species that it can lean on, rely on, and work in a cooperative way. This happens in the animal kingdom and in the world of plants. Well, many kinds of plants rely on other plants, or they rely on fungi. In other words, this is Donna Haraway's wonderful concept, the companion species. So I like to think of the challenge for us. This is not a promise or a prediction, but in an idea for possibility is that AI can become a companion species that helps us figure out all of the incredibly self-destructive things human beings are doing to themselves. At this very moment, for instance, when we should be paying attention to climate change, it's as if this imminent danger, which is changing our planet, we can't be bothered because we're too busy making war. You would think by now the human species would have said to itself, can we imagine and create a society that does not have to engage in war? I mean, I have to apologize for my own country, which is engaged in far too many and has far too much power over the world. So that's to me, we can't predict with certainty, but we can speculate. And there are alternate ways. I think imagination, which is to me the definitive character of the human, is a way of imagining ways where we could come to terms with our own nature. That's what I think of as the promise, the possibility of AI, that it will help us discover what human intelligence is for. Is it only for designing machines to destroy each other, to consume the resources of our planet, or can we find a way to come to peace with nature and with our own human nature?
Thank you, Professor. Priya Darshini Stuti asks, hello, Professor. Thank you for such an illuminated discussion. In your lecture so far, you've addressed the linguistic and the visual. Given the turn toward affect in the 20th century thought, I'm curious to hear from you. What would you say are the implications of a visual affect epistemology?
The implications of the visual and epistemology?
Visual affect epistemology.
Visual affect epistemology. You'll have to explain what you mean by that.
We'll take it up if she explains it. Let's move on to the next question. We have Mr. Kaf, who asks, would one say that the Protestant Reformation's iconoclasm was an economic argument? The resources absorbed by Catholic visual cultures, the cathedrals, the relics, saints' images could be redistributed rather than consumed by the church symbolic apparatus. So is iconoclasm then just not a theological or political act, but a sort of Marxist one, a critique of fetishization of surplus into unproductive display, or simply a critique of profligacy?
Mm-hmm. This is it's a very profound question, and I don't have a simple answer to it. I've written about the subject of iconoclasm in Iconology, and in fact, one of the theses of that book is iconology as a discipline is not just about knowing what images are. but it's also about dealing with our fear and love of images. So affect, maybe this comes back to the previous question about affect and epistemology, about knowing. Epistemology is about knowing, affect is about feeling. So why do we want to destroy images? Why do we fear them? We make them. We love them. They are part of us. They are in our minds, inside of us and outside of us. So they are, and imagination is what our brains are best at making up worlds, and also at trying to come to terms with the reality of the world. Why do we want to destroy images? Because we feel that they sometimes, some of them, have become too important. They have come to dominate us. They've come to lead us astray. And again, I think Plato is the great founder of iconology, because he says we live in a world of images. We know that in some ways it's not all there is, that there is a reality behind it, a real, or that the reality we see is one that is constructed by our language. And we want to get past the language to something more real, as if we were looking into matter to find the atomic substructure or the quantum structure. So human knowledge is always progressing by breaking with a previous image, by saying that was a false image, we want to move to a new one. So iconoclasm can be very beneficial in that way. In physics, for instance, there is particle physics, which says the universe is nothing but atoms in motion. And then quantum physics comes along and says, no, the universe is made up of bundles of energy in motion, and the particles only give you a partial picture. So you've got to overcome a previous mistaken picture and replace it with a new one. And I've been studying the attempt to picture quantum physics and quantum mechanics. It's very paradoxical, because our classical pictorial representation, perspectival representation, seem to show us a rational world, 3 dimensions plus time, and that's it. There's reality. Quantum physics makes all of that very confusing and uncanny. So the advancement of knowledge often has an iconoclastic moment. We have to get rid of that false knowledge. In religion, I think it has to do more with tribalism and with other human enemies. So for the Israelites, for instance, the story of the golden calf, they have defined their God as strictly invisible. You must not make an image of our God. It's impossible. But then there was a debate in Judaism. How do we feel about people who do make images? Do we allow them to do that, or if we just tolerate that? Europe during the Reformation, the movement of Protestantism was very violent iconoclasm. It not only destroyed buildings and paintings, but it also went after the people who worshiped them. And Christianity, as a kind of adjunct to religious empires, Christian empires, the British Empire, was responsible for a lot of iconoclasm. The destruction of images that other people hold to be sacred, because you say they are the ones who are mistaken because they worship those images. So that's quite different from what I'm calling epistemological iconoclasm. You have a wrong picture, let's correct it. That doesn't mean I'm going to kill you because, or try to destroy your sacred objects.
That's very correct, Professor. But I suppose what Michigan was asking was that you would say that the image has its own power, right? The statues, the saints of the relics of the saints, they have their own power, which the Protestants want to subvert, and they're thereby sort of validating the image's power, right? So, but what I suppose she's asking is that couldn't you just say that the argument is an economic one? Because one, the argument against Catholicism was that it's immoral because it's exploitative, it is highly corrupted. So therefore, these relics, these cathedrals, these very extravagant construction.
Mm-hmm.
Couldn't you just say that they were destroyed because they represented or were created because of this highly immoral conduct of the Catholic Church?
For sure, you could say that. My father was a mining engineer. When he was a student, a very young man, this is 100 years ago, he traveled to Mexico, and he grew up, as I did, in a Catholic family. So we were very used to our churches and the images in the church and all the rituals that go with them. When he went to Mexico, he saw how incredibly poor the peasants were and how rich the church was, and how the church extracted money from these very poor people to spend on decorating and expensive statues and paintings of all kinds, and enormous cathedrals. So as an art historian, of course, I feel very ambivalent about that. The social conditions that went with Catholic idolatry were deplorable. They were exploitive. But now we travel long ways and spend a lot of money to go to Europe to look at these relics of the past. They're no longer seen as, now they are the great works of art. So it is a very fundamental tension among human societies of what we will spend money on, what is important to invest your wealth in. And for some, it'll be for objects that bring everybody together around an image. The Catholic argument is not a stupid argument. They say, this is what makes a community. We need an image to gather around. Very much like Aaron, the artist in Poussin's painting, saying, okay, Moses, who is the prophet of the law and of the invisible God, has disappeared. The people need something to gather around. So they say, make us an idol to go before us. So he does it. So I agree with you. There is an economic argument here, but it's not the only argument. There are also arguments about social solidarity. What brings people together? What do people want and need? And sometimes people want to sacrifice. They want to give so they can have something they care about. It's the argument of the Reformation and the Counter-Reformation is still going on. The art historian Vasari said, "Don't blame the artists. It's not our fault. The people want this and they need this, and we just need to explain to them, you mustn't worship these images, and of course the artists don't. The artists are simply making them for devotion and community. So it's a powerful debate. Iconoclasm and iconophilia and idolatry, I think, are built into the social political tension around images, and of course the economic argument is it's strong, but it's not the only one.
Thank you, Professor. We have Amrita Rokre, who's asking, how is creating image and understanding of God religion linked? And is there any school of thought looking at the meaning of life, God without images? She's also asking for references.
Say the question again, if you could.
How is creating image and understanding of God or religion linked? And is there any school of thought looking at the meaning of life, God without images? She's also asking for references.
Mm-hmm. Well, making images and treating them as gods or worshiping them is a common human practice. It's not some strange exotic phenomenon, but for some societies, it's absolutely normal and central. In a way, this is the same question we've been discussing. Why do people do that? One answer is that the images provide a people with some identity as a people, that we gather around these images, which they belong to us and we belong to them. So you think, for instance, think of the pantheon of the many gods of polytheism, where the gods often personify aspects of the human mind itself. So I remember when in my childhood, reading comic books, there was a wonderful superhero named Captain Marvel. Captain Marvel was an ordinary human being, but if he said a magic word, the word was Shazam, Shazam, and it was an acronym. Shazam was Solomon wisdom, Hercules strength, Atlas power, Zeus authority, Achilles military prowess, Mercury speed. So right away you would see Billy would turn into a superhero the minute he invoked all these gods under the acronym Shazam. So imagination is partly for knowing things, but they're also they project images of the parts of human experience of the world, of our ability to move, to think, to build. For instance, the figure of Hephaestus or Vulcan. He is the blacksmith god. He's the one who forges the shields and weapons. So it's as if humanity is always projecting itself out into the world, as if our own powers could be personified by these deities. In a way, it's self-worship. That's why often the picture of a god is a picture of a person, a man, a woman, or it could be an animal. In many religions, and this was what the Israelites were especially concerned about, the calf. Why are you dancing around a calf? What does the calf represent? So the tendency to project our imagination outward as a mirror of ourselves but one that is independent of us, that we must somehow invoke it. We pray to the God of reason, the God of love, the God of technical skill, everything. So it's a built-in part of it. It's what makes us what we are. Imaginative animals, not rational animals. Reason is kind of the exception, I think. Reason is a carve-out from the general tendency to live in a world of imagination. It's a very important part, and that's why our invention of a new species of intelligent life that is very gifted at remembering everything and calculating everything, calculating probabilities. I mean, these are living computers that can recombine all of our numbers, all of our words, all of our images, and give them back to us in new forms. I think it's very much a logical development of something we've been doing for a very long time. And now it's reached a kind of a critical point. The new technology, Vulcan was the god of technology. He's the one who worked in metal and fire at a forge. So that's what we are, and where it leads, what we might become, that is the great mystery and the great enigma to be solved in the future.
Kapesh, I hope, Professor, we have enough time for questions. Mm-hmm. Okay, sure. So, Kapesh asks, in the context of globalizing iconology, how do you think the non-European theories of aesthetics, like theory of rasa in India, prompts a reframing of the frameworks?
Say the question again.
In the context of globalizing iconology, how do you think non-European theories of aesthetics, like the theory of rasa in India, prompts a reframing of the frameworks?
Well, I think the non-European, it's for a long time, the West, I think, was very ethnocentric. It regarded, you can see it in the discipline of anthropology. Remember, anthropology was always focused on the non-West, on the non-modern, with natives, aborigines, or non-Western civilizations like India, like China. They were regarded often as cultures that made too much of images, but particularly the scientific and Protestant mentality regarded these places as they need to be liberated from their ignorance because they believe too much in images. I think that has been one of the great revolutions of our time, especially at the level of academic research. Anthropology is a completely different discipline than it was 100 years ago. If you were an anthropologist, it meant you had to go to Australia and go to the outback. I was just this week involved in a conference here at University of Chicago of what's called medical anthropology. These are anthropologists who study doctors and study hospitals and nurses and study the institutions of medicine as human institutions that are filled with customs, images of various kinds, hierarchies and ranks, and all kinds of occupational phobias, anxieties, burnout. The stress of being a doctor, for instance, is one of their subjects. Why is it that psychiatrists who listen to people talk about their troubles and their anxieties themselves become subject to that? Could it be that the doctor and the patient have a relationship that's more than just the scientist and the medical object. So anthropology is turning the kind of clinical, sanitized world of hospitals into what it really is, a messy human institution that needs to be described as such, as a social form, and not just a kind of rational enterprise. Of course, reason is extremely important to it, and there is a fetishizing of the authority of the doctor. So the doctor has become a kind of wise man and learned man. And of course, we know that's always limited. It's not absolute. So yes, I think the non-West, the non-European, the best illustration of that is, and this was partly of the whole movement known as the post-colonial movement. Edward Said always said, what do you mean post? I don't think anything is over. It's not behind us. Colonialism is still going on. It's alive and well. But also my colleague here at University of Chicago, Dipesh Chakrabarty, who had been the leader of this transformation of the colonial sphere as a place where we are studying them. They are the subjects, and we are the scientists. And now it's a much different world, I think, in which alternate forms of knowledge, different customs of human life and society, can be treated with respect and treated as a framework for understanding some of the strange, exotic things that the West has been committed to. For instance, it's, to me, the more I think as an iconologist, the more I think how strange and in a way terrible the iconoclastic wars of the 17th century were. People were being killed, massacred. It wasn't just destroying images, but destroying the people who cared about images.
We have a question from Malavika. You argue that the image can migrate freely across pictures. Now, if I recall, you established this in the first part of the presentation. But the art market tells us something different. A forged Vermeer that is visually indistinguishable from the original is worthless, while the original is worth hundreds of millions. So if the image truly travels across its material supports, why does the picture, its physical origin, its material history command that kind of power? Isn't the market then telling us that the image cannot be separated from the picture?
Yeah, that's, but we could have a very long conversation about this question. Yes, in many ways, the image is embedded in a picture. It appears in or on the picture, but it also can escape the picture because the picture is in a particular place. It's hanging on a wall. It has a frame on it. It is a material thing. But it has an apparition in it. You look at it and you don't just see a material object with a frame hanging on a wall. You see a person. You see a landscape. You see a vision of some kind, which can be photographed and remembered. So the image is in the picture, but it can also leave the picture. The most simple example is if you sometimes a museum will try to forbid the theft of the image. If you stand in front of a painting in a museum, you may be told no photography, and that's because if you took that picture, you would be in a sense stealing. You wouldn't be stealing the picture; you'd be stealing the image, taking it for your own. And that's why the reproduction of images, their capacity to go exist in multiples, where you make an engraved copy. Raphael's School of Athens in the Vatican was rapidly turned into a tapestry woven, and then into copperplate engravings, which were stamped on paper. So this painting in the Vatican, the image circulated with thousands of copies all over Europe. That's why I do think it's important to distinguish the image from the picture, even though they are very deeply connected. But the picture is the material kind of incarnation of the image in a singular object.
Professor, we have clarifications from the previous skipped questions. I'll read them now. So Priyadarshini, she says, if I'm not mistaken, affect theory emerged in the 1990s as an interdisciplinary framework for the bodily, pre-conscious, non-representational intensities we call affect, as distinct from conscious emotion. Given your focus on the linguistic and visual, I'm curious what you see as the implication of a visual affect epistemology, and how would one discern the affect in the visual?
Well, the affect I take in the most common sense of as feeling. A feeling that may be very close to your body, a feeling of, could be tactile, could be temperature, warmth, coldness, but associated with a perception. And in the case of an image, the range of affects is whatever human beings are capable of feeling. At the same time, it can be an object of knowledge. It can tell us, here is the way something looked. This is the way a witness perceived and represented this thing, and they were trying to do it truthfully. Or it could be, no, I want to make it weird and distorted. So the art, one of the great arts of image making is caricature, in which you distort the epistemological image, you exaggerate it, you heighten some features, so that your portrait of Winston Churchill merges his features with the face of a bulldog. So man and dog are merged in the image. Or the stereotype, in which you say, oh, this face, which you think is of a specific person, is just a type. It is of nobody particular. This is, by the way, one of the features of AI, that you see what look like real human beings, thousands of them. And that's because AI not only is grounded in a large language model, but a large image model as well. It has a memory, an archive of millions of images, and it can make a new one which is of nobody. So the portrait itself, and often when you look at an AI portrait, you think, boy, that looks like a real person, doesn't it? And this is why some people have said we need to watermark AI images, to identify them as such, because they simulate the real. They make us think that's the way things are, but it's a complete fabrication.
We have a question, a clarification from Prahlada. Is a sense of history being created by images, thus legitimizing sacredness of religious stories or figures? Would be my question. I suppose on the same framework, we could consider if the future can be given a sense of real by depiction of end times, like great floods, effect of climate change, for example, and if these would be useful to prompt human action, almost akin to how Mother India images mobilized religious and nationalistic action.
Yes, I think this is, arguably one of the most important functions of image making is rational, realistic speculations and projections of possible futures. And I think of it, it's a perfectly ordinary part of human consciousness. I play chess with my grandson, and we have a kind of ritual we go through for every move. He's getting very good, but whenever we see a situation, we look at the board together, and I ask him, "Elan, what do you see?" And I say, "What do you see as possibilities for you to do, and what do you see as threats against you?" And if you move this piece there, what will the board look like? You can't see it now, but you can imagine what the board will look like after one move, and then two moves, and three moves. And if you can imagine all those moves as being forced or compelled, that the person has to do, your opponent has to do it. So imagination it's connected to memory and recollection of images of the past, but it's also about the ability to foresee, to prophesy. And that's why the question of human extinction is closely related, because we can foresee it. It's not some deep, dark mystery. We have numerous movies about post-civilization conditions, what the world would be like if nation states, governments, communities, and societies began to collapse into anarchy. Right now, the country of Iran is, remember, just a week ago, the president of the United States threatened to annihilate an entire civilization. The Persian civilization has been around for a very, very long time. He actually threatened its annihilation. And of course, we have foreseen this at least since the 1940s, when atomic bombs were dropped on cities. One of the great, horrible historic atrocities, which I think the human species has still not quite reckoned with, that we are now capable as a species of destroying ourselves. And this is not a fantasy. It's a technical possibility. We can do it fast with atomic weapons. We can do it slowly by poisoning our air and water. So imagination, it can lead us astray, but it can also, it's the power to foresee, to imagine what things will be like if we do certain things. That's why with AI, I think we have a choice. We can turn it into an instrument of power over others, of deception, control, or we can treat it as a companion species. They'll help us to understand more, to calculate more precisely. Since, for instance, the difference between ecological thinking, environmental thinking, and here I'm referencing my colleague, Dipesh Chakrabarty, who has written a new book, which I love. It's called One Planet, Many Worlds. We do have one planet, and we have a science, Earth system science, that studies that planet and tries to make accurate predictions to produce images of what the world will be like if we continue to just do what we're doing. And so at the same time, we have many worlds, many nations, many languages, all these different worlds of the human species. But we have to figure out how all those worlds can come together to create a sustainable planet a habitat where we all. That's a task for the collaboration of imagination and reason with this companion species that we have just over the half century have managed to invent.
We have a final question from Harish. I wanted to ask a question regarding the use of iconology and symbolism in relation to the rise of totalitarianism. How do symbols, icons arouse people to certain ideology, narratives that are exclusionary and ultra-nationalistic in terms of its exclusion? How can we see this neo-totalitarianism like that we see in the Western world that arouse the superiority of the West compared to East supported by oligarchs such as Musk or Thiel? Would like your insights.
Yes, well, people gather around images that often try to express their superiority over other people. And I'm sorry to say that we have a sovereign figure in this country at the moment, Donald Trump, he's very concerned with building images of himself. He actually circulated a video of Gaza, his vision of the future of Gaza, which, as you know, is Gaza is the post-apocalyptic world we envision. Many cities and many countries could become like Gaza. 90% of the housing of the buildings in Gaza are gone. People are living in tents. They've returned to a much more primitive way of life in which just getting water and food. So what is the video of Donald Trump's vision of the future of Gaza? What does it look like? He sees the world like a real estate developer. And so it is like a simulacrum of Miami Beach with luxury high-rise condominiums, gorgeous waterfront villas for the very, very, very rich, the oligarchy that he is part of his social world. And at the center of it, he imagined a kind of square with a golden statue of himself. He has a God complex. He idolizes himself. He thinks of him, he asks artificial intelligence to portray him as Jesus, healing the sick, or receiving his authority from God. He's even treated that way by some of his followers. For instance, Benjamin Netanyahu regards him as the modern Cyrus, the emperor of Persia, who was friendly to the Jews and released them from captivity in Babylon, allowed them to build their own temple. I mean, these religious fantasies are being acted out by powerful and extraordinarily wealthy members of the global elite now. We have a special class now of people who are almost completely detached from the ordinary conditions of human life. They have to, servants, multiple villas all over the planet. They fly from one place to another in private planes. They are surrounded by servants. We think of the old Roman Empire as a place of radical hierarchy. The modern world goes way beyond the Roman Empire in terms of the extremes of inequality. Right next to a mansion, there can be a man lying asleep on the street, or somebody asking for money, beggars and oligarchs, and we reach a state of much more radical inequality, I think, than the human species ever had to deal with. Also, the immigrants and refugees the millions of people in the Sudan who are fleeing for their lives, or the immigrants who come to the United States. You may know that we have been, Trump's regime has made them into an internal enemy. And in fact, he has tried to reinvoke the civil war in this country by defining his political opponents as absolute enemies. A new conservatism that believes in authoritarian governments that endanger democracy. This has become a global phenomenon. So we're in a precarious position with regard to the imagination of authority and the difference among people. All of these are human beings. They're all featherless bipeds walking around with the same organic animal character, and yet some of them imagine themselves to be gods. I know Elon Musk is investing deeply in immortality. He's trying to find a way that technology can keep what he calls his meat sack, that's his actual physical body, can keep that alive indefinitely and keep his brain alive in some kind of form as well. So we are in a strange apocalyptic moment with extinction on the horizon, with deep political controversies and a failure to take account of the most important problems facing our species. That's why I think imagination has both created that, and it could be the cure, particularly if we use it with our very smart new companions to figure out how to overcome these what seem like intractable problems.
Professor Michel. Professor Michel, thank you on behalf of Scribe and the Department of History, and on behalf of everyone who joined us today. What was scheduled as a lecture became something closer to a remarkable 2.5 hour conversation. We are deeply touched by your dedication and generosity with your time. We are honored that you chose to spend this evening with us. Thank you.
Well, thank you so much for inviting me. It's a pleasure, and I wish you all a good day.